Good evening, everyone. This is Reading for Charity again. We're doing charity read. This is all for charity. We're raising money for the Archie Foundation, a fantastic charity in the North East of Scotland. Raises money for sick kids. Proud to support it. I've said this spiel so many times now that it's getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Mostly because I don't think anyone ever listens to it. So today's book is Anvil of Stars by Greg Bear. So this one was quite curious in that it was the second part of a series, and I hadn't been given the first book to read in the series. So slight trollish behaviour by giving me the middle of what I assume is a trilogy, so I'm missing some of the context from the book to start with. As it happens, I don't actually think I need the start of the book, the first book, to actually make sense of what's going on. Essentially, the world's ended due to nanobots converting it into space matter. Humanity, or what's left of humanity, is rescued by different robots who then put some children on a spaceship and are launched off into the universe to go told avenge Earth. Basically, that's the setup for the book. Now, this is hard sci-fi. Greg Bear's known for his hard sci-fi, and this is basically the selling point for the book. So everything in the book is based in science. The way the ships work, there's no faster than light travel. Everything is, percentages of the speed of light. All communications are on a delay. Even the weaponry that they use, essentially nanobots making nukes, etc., is all based in science. So everything in the book is hard science based, and that's fine, totally fine. It gets a little bit tedious, and I think if it makes it very impenetrable to your average reader who doesn't have a grounding in quantum entanglement or spooky action at a distance. If you don't know these things, the book is essentially magic. It's Star Trek psychobabble, sci-babble that he's spouting if you haven't got a grounding in the science, which is fine as long as the story actually fits the science, goes along with it. If it's a good story and good science, then you've got a good book. Now again, the top of the list that I put for these things is things like the culture. Culture is, verges into science fiction away from hard science because it's so futuristic. It's we've discovered a billion more natural laws than we know now, so it verges upon space opera. Greg Bear makes the assumption that the fundamental laws we know now are the fundamental laws that still exist thousands of years in the future. There's very little change there. So the tech is not dated, but it becomes, he's almost constrained himself by doing that. There's no, we'll call it, there's no super weapon sort of thing. There's no magic, but we'll come on to that because there is. The actual story itself is quite interesting. It gets a little bit Lord of the Flies in space is essentially how I would describe the book, and I think that's the first part of the problem I have with this, which is the writing about the kids. If you have actually a bunch of kids on a spaceship, it's going to be completely crazy. People aren't going to understand their roles, their functions. There's no adults to explain to them, how societies function, and the moms, as they say, the robots on board the spaceship, don't seem to be willing to intercede in any way, shape or form. So murders happen on board ship. The way that sexuality develops on board ship, which is just very, very loose and very easy, and it's kind of the same problems that Peter F. Hamilton has when he writes his science fiction. Everyone just assumes that freed from the boundaries of society, everyone will immediately just start shagging everyone else. And maybe that would be true, maybe that is true. But given the fact that we have plenty of evidence of other places on the planet which have different moral codes from ourselves and have different societies from ourselves. You know, rampant sexuality doesn't necessarily occur in those. It kind of feels that he's writing it for titillation's effect rather than, you know, actually being reasonable about it. And this is my biggest problem with the whole Anvil of Stars book in itself. The way that the characters work in the book is is dumb. None of the characters actually. A lot of the story relies on characters doing the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person. The whole book relies on being stupid, despite the fact that they've all been hand chosen as the best people for the job, and you know, sent out. They all are completely stupid. The first time they suffer any losses, they go completely to pieces. They discover religion, you know, and religion takes massively off, and you know, they don't do anything to stop it. Really, if they were going to go on what is a military mission, and it is a military mission they're sent on, they're sent off as civilians to do a military mission. So you take the US Army, the UK Army, any army in the world, part of your, you know, basic training is teaching people how to kill. You know, so when the time comes, then they actually have to pull the trigger that they can do it without a qualm. Now, none of that is actually given to the children in this book, so when it comes to actually pull the trigger, there's a huge philosophical and moral debate about whether they should or shouldn't pull the trigger. And that is, you know, the number one problem with this. If you're actually going to encourage children to go away and fight, then you have to give them the training to do it, and they don't. So, you know, the whole setup for them, they're all set up to fail. And they do completely fail. And by the end of the book, they require essentially a Deus Ex Machina in order to make them succeed. So they perform a genocide 1,000 times worse than what's been performed on them, on the basis of, well, it's probably okay. And the last couple of pages goes, aha, you were right all along. The bad guys were hiding behind the trillion innocent human shields, or alien shields as it is. And then the book makes absolutely no argument as to whether, you know, killing the trillion human shields was worth killing the other bits. Given how so much of the book is set up to be, you know, the spirit of the law versus the word of the law, when they actually come to enact the law, there's nothing about it. You know, other than the psychological damage they suffer. So the story is seriously suspect in that a lot of people have to be very stupid and act very stupidly for the story to go the way it does. My problem with the science at the end is that it essentially then becomes magic. You know, over the course of a very short space of time, they develop an entirely new set of science on top of what they've already learned. Or have they? Or were the moms hiding it all along? Question mark, question mark, question mark. The small bit at the end suggests no, that it hadn't. But the new science that they discover becomes magic. It is essentially magic. With them being able to do quantum entanglement instantaneously. And quantum entanglement doesn't work like that. You don't change one thing here and something changes over there instantly. You entangle it, one travels, and then the communication is instantaneous. Essentially getting faster than light communication, but not faster than light travel. In the book, it becomes faster than light travel in that you change something here and something way over there changes immediately as well. So he despite being set up for hard science all the way through, he then breaks at the end by delving into what is essentially magic. Which is another problem with the story. You know, when the main character, whose name's now just escaped me, I keep wanting to call him Theodore, but that's his alter ego, Martin. When Martin goes down to the surface of the planet, you know, he's thinking about, well, you know, all the deceptions that are going on and the science that's involved and the power that's going on and what they can do. And he even thinks to himself, you know, they could alter my mind and make me think that everything's fine and send me back up. And that's the point that becomes completely impossible for this. Why didn't they? Why didn't they just take his mind, dissect it using their nano tools, discover what they needed to know, which was that Shrike and Greyhound were all ready to go and they had special weapons, and then put his brain back together again. He would know nothing about it and then send them off on his way, and then they would be prepared. It's when you delve into the realms of magic, when everything becomes magic, nothing is impossible. And that's part of the problem I have with this. There's so many things that the bad guys, in inverted commas, could do but don't because of needing to round the story up because you're in the last 50 pages of the book. Likewise with the big battle scene at the end. When the moms come up with a fantastic way, all this new science, and we can guard ourselves against it. It's like, but you're using the science that you've discovered in the solar system. You can defend yourself against it, but the ones who came up with it can't. And you've come up with this in less than 24 hours. It's annoying to make the story work. And the last bit that I'm going to complain about is when Hans orders the attack without Martin's knowledge. And he acts hugely offended about this. How dare you, do this without, telling me it was going to happen. Despite the fact that literally 2 pages before they'd been talking about the fact that they were all probably infested with nano spies and everything that they said would be transmitted back to the bad guys. It's like, well, yes, in that case, Hans wouldn't tell you it was going to happen because it would be giving away your plans. And then there's 20 pages worth of stupidity arguing about this. It's very, very, very annoying. Very annoying. And it's spoilt the book because up to the last 50 pages, the book was genuinely, I think, quite enjoyable, and then went to pieces. I think he didn't know how to finish it. I genuinely don't know. But that's how it felt to me. Yeah, so it was frustrating into the book. I don't know if there's going to be a third part to this or not. The ending of this was quite final. Maybe it was just a 2-part series. I haven't gone and looked it up. Will I go look up a third part? I don't know. I quite like Greg Bear's writing. I quite like the hard sci-fi. But the story was lacking, so maybe I give him another go. I suspect I give him another go. So yes, anyway. Anvil of Stars. Should you read this book? If you have a basic grounding in physics and you understand things like quantum entanglement and spooky action at a distance, yes, read the book. You'll quite enjoy it. You'll quite enjoy the way the science is set up. If you're reading it for the story, you might get a little bit frustrated with the way that the story has been set up. But yes, read this book. You should read this book. It's actually very, very good. I may go hunt down the Forge of God at some point. I want to say I've read Forge of God previously, or at least some of it, because some of the bits they talked about in this book I vaguely remembered, because I remember thinking it was quite kind of B-movie sci-fi-ish when I read it before. I'm gonna have to go hunt it down again and actually give it another go. But that'll be next year once I finish reading all these books. So yes, I think you should read this book. It's a good book. I highly enjoyed it. I mean, I read this in 2 days. So it was quite compressed, but I didn't skim it like I've skimmed some of the other. It's like I skimmed 50 Shades of Grey. This was properly slowly read, and I enjoyed it. I really, really did enjoy it. Okay, next book. Next book will be, jumping from one thing to another like crazy, will be The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole, aged 13 3/4, which I'm half the way through already. I should have this one finished tonight. Fingers crossed, and I will be doing the review of this one tomorrow. That's the plan. Do the review of this one tomorrow, and then I think I'm only one book behind. I need to double check where I actually am. I might be on target. I might be one behind. We'll see. We'll see where we are. But yes, that will be tomorrow's review. Until then, this is Reading for Charity. We're reading for the Archie Foundation, a fantastic charity that helps kids in the northeast of Scotland. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. And I will speak to you all again, hopefully, tomorrow. Good evening.